Today, Thor, the god of thunder, does not descend into Asgard. Instead, he appears in the Chinese mythology, his hair still golden, but his eyes are now sharp and Asian-shaped. A war topknot bound with red silk holding his hair, a short golden beard kept in a metal ring, and cloud blue lamellar armor edged with bronze, marked by the storms of Gong. His father is not the All-Father, but Gong, the punisher of the guilty, whose mallet commands the storm. His mother is not the earth, but Tian, the goddess of lightning, whose mirror eyes paint the sky with fire. The moment he is born, drums roll across Kunlun, not the drinking halls of Valhalla, and dragons ride through the clouds to watch the child who will bend thunder to his will. In the north, Thor is molded by Odin's stern hand and raised among the Aesir to one day guard against giants. Here, in Chinese mythology, no one dares mold him. His first clap of thunder cracks over terraced rice fields, drowning the prayers of farmers who know the gods are near. Villagers scatter as the skies blacken, and what would have been a playful show of strength in Asgard becomes a natural disaster in the Middle Kingdom. The Jade Emperor does not smile at his son's power. He sends soldiers clad in jade and bronze to contain the infant who shakes the mountains with laughter. In Asgard, Thor's childhood tales are of brawls and feasts, of throwing hammers at goats and being chastised by Odin. In Kunlun, every misstep is thunder over 1,000 villages. Every tantrum is a flood risk. Heavenly generals gather in council, debating whether this boy is a blessing or a curse. Some whisper he could rival Nezha. Others fear he will become another Wukong, a rebel against the heavens. But where Loki would always lurk as Thor's trickster counterpart in the West, here, Wukong would be much more of a problem, because his chaos is not limited to clever tricks. He could split into an army of clones, bend the laws of heaven, and fight entire legions alone. Thor would not just face a schemer like Loki. He would face a warrior who breaks the order of the skies. Dragons would test the Chinese Thor and find themselves thrown down by a boy who wields thunder like a toy. When the soldiers return to report, they do not speak of a child, but of a weapon the heavens themselves forged. In the north, Thor's destiny was to defend mankind from Jotnar. Here, before he has even seen his first harvest, his destiny is already entangled with the balance of rain, flood, and famine. He is no prince of Asgard. He is the storm of Kunlun, feared and revered, bound not by Odin's rules, but by the Jade Emperor's law. And his story begins not in the halls of Valhalla, but under the shadow of mountains where dragons sleep. Thor grows fast under the strict eyes of celestial generals, trained not to unleash storms in anger, but to channel them with control. He is not raised in feasting halls or by the side of a one-eyed father. He is drilled by celestial generals who demand order in every strike. From the beginning, the Jade Emperor orders that he must not grow wild, so he is placed in the care of teachers who do not praise brawling strength, but insist on rhythm, control, and balance. Nezha, the boy god who himself once fought against heaven, is called to temper Thor's temper. Their clashes shake the training yards of Kunlun, Nezha's fire wheels spinning against the thunder that spills from Thor's hands. Unlike the north, where Thor spends youth drinking mead and hurling blows at giants, here every mistake means the risk of flood or drought. Taoist monks surround him with talismans, forcing him to learn how to direct the storm instead of letting it burst free. Thor learns breath before strike, calm before rage, and each lesson feels like chains to him. But chains keep the mountain from falling. The generals drive him into the sky courts, where he practices footwork across suspended bridges that vanish into mist, where each misstep drops him toward valleys full of serpents. He learns to pull thunder into the point of a spear instead of letting it scatter, to call rain in lines that feed fields rather than destroy them. The farmers below whisper his name in fear, but also leave offerings at shrines, because a storm that kills can also be a storm that saves. Thor is restless. He seeks challenges, not lectures, and when his teachers hold him back, he slips free. He chases storms across the ridges, where dragons swim through cloud rivers. Shenlong watches him with interest, and lesser rain dragons dive to test his courage. While giants in the north are foes of size and bone, here his early enemies are coils of thunderous scale, beasts who are not always evil, but always proud. At barely more than a boy, he drives a young dragon into the mountain lakes, his halberd crackling with borrowed lightning. And in that clash, the villagers see that the boy is not only dangerous, but also a shield. He returns with his armor scorched and his arms trembling, but his eyes burn brighter. The Jade Court notes each deed, weighing whether he is a threat like Wukong or a guardian worth grooming. Wukong himself had mocked heaven with defiance, and Thor is compared to him constantly. Yet while Wukong plays trickster and thrives in chaos, Thor is different. His path is direct, his rage open, his fists honest. This contrast becomes his mark, and the generals begin to trust him where they once feared him. Still, the discipline of Taoist masters continues. They drill him at sunrise with chants, force him to balance jars of water on his shoulders while lightning dances over his skin, teach him that power is wasted if it cannot serve the order of the five elements. The boy who once split terraces with laughter now learns to water them with controlled rain. The legend spreads. In Asgard, he would be a loud companion at feasts, but in Kunlun, he is the storm child that monks whisper about in prayers. His youth is not mead and contests of strength, but endless battles with dragons of the cloud, sparring with Nezha until both collapse, and carrying the weight of the sky in every lesson. By the end of his childhood, Thor is no longer feared as a mistake of heaven. He is recognized as a weapon that has learned to wait for command, a storm trained to answer law, and the Jade Court begins to prepare him for a destiny far larger than the mountains that raised him. And when the boy finally learns to call rain without tearing apart the fields, the Jade Court knows the time has come for his next trial. Power without a weapon is a storm without direction, and the heavens whisper of a forge that can shape thunder into steel. The question is no longer whether Thor can summon the storm, but whether he is worthy of the weapon that will carry it. Now, Thor is no longer the storm child that terrifies farmers. He is a young warrior ready to claim the tool that will define him. In northern Thales, dwarves craft Mjolnir in the dark of the earth, a hammer that crushes skulls and always returns to its master's hand. In Chinese mythology, the story unfolds differently. Laozi himself gathers the celestial smiths, not to dig in rock, but to pull metals from lightning. They temper the blade in rivers of molten jade, inscribe it with the names of the five directions, and bind it with scripts that align with the five elements. The weapon that emerges is not blunt like a hammer, but a halberd, its curved blade sharp enough to part cloud and storm, its black shaft veined with copper that hums when thunder gathers. Where Mjolnir is simple and direct, the halberd demands harmony. To swing it without balance is to risk breaking the very sky. Thor trains for days in silence, while generals and monks surround him, chanting to keep the forge stable. When he first grasps the weapon, lightning leaps across the chamber, burning talismans to ash, and even the Jade Emperor rises from his throne to watch. The boy grips tighter, and thunder answers him with a roar so loud that mountains echo. Yet the halberd resists him. It drags at his arm, its weight far greater than metal should allow. The smiths whisper that the weapon chooses no master who cannot control himself. Thor slams it into the floor, sparks exploding like stars, and the stone cracks. Farmers in distant valleys believe an earthquake struck, but it is only the weapon struggling against its wielder. Unlike the hammer of the north that proves itself by smashing giants, this weapon proves itself by testing the heart of the one who dares hold it. Each strike he practices sends lightning across the sky. Each misstep darkens the heavens as if warning a flood. His childhood of discipline is the only thing that keeps villages safe during these trials. and the Jade Court holds its breath, wondering whether they have forged a savior or a disaster. The halberd glows with power, meant for harmony, not chaos, and Thor feels the truth settle in his chest. Strength alone will never be enough. He must wield the storm without letting it consume him. The thunder is his to command, but it will abandon him the moment pride or rage outweighs balance. The first time he raises it high, clouds gather from every direction, and lightning bolts strike the peaks of Kunlun as if bowing to the weapon. Monks scatter, soldiers fall to their knees, and the Emperor himself asks aloud whether this boy rules the storm, or if the storm has claimed a body to wear. The next battle will show the answer, for only then will all see if the weapon obeys the warrior, or if the warrior is only its servant. In the north, Thor proves himself by splitting the skulls of frost and stone giants, creatures that stand tall but fall when struck hard enough. In China, the enemies that test him are not made of ice or rock, but of storm and scale. His greatest trial comes when he dares to summon a tempest without seeking leave from the rulers of the seas. The clouds churn, the air grows heavy, and from the waves rises Gong, the dragon king of the East Sea, his body long as a mountain range, and his mane glowing with stormlight. Where a giant roars and swings a club, Gong commands the ocean itself. The waves rise like fortress walls, curling around Thor as if to crush him whole. Thunder answers instinctively, leaping from the halberd in his hands, and for the first time, his power is not enough to dominate the field. A sea does not break, it folds back and comes again. Every strike of the halberd shakes the sky, every coil of the dragon shakes the sea, and villagers far inland hear the duel as if the world itself were cracking. In northern sagas, giants are beaten until they cannot rise, but here Thor learns that dragons do not measure victory only by strength. They test pride, wisdom, and the ability to respect powers that will not bend. Gong lashes his tail, sending Thor sprawling across slick rock, and laughs with a sound that rattles ships in their harbors. Thor rises, soaked and raging, and calls lightning so fierce that it burns the surface of the sea. Yet even as he fights, he realizes that breaking the dragon would mean breaking the rains that feed the land. To win is not enough. He must prove that he can command storms without killing the sky itself. Again and again, he is forced to hold back his hand, to strike not for destruction, but for balance, because unlike giants, these serpents of water are the lifeline of the empire. When the storm clears, Thor does not stand over a corpse, but face to face with a king who has chosen whether to curse him or grant him passage. It is a lesson he never faced in the north, one that will shape every battle to come. And when Thor finally lifts his eyes toward the proudest dragon of the four seas, the one who bows to no emperor and guards the horizon with storms of his own, all know that the next clash will decide if he commands the heavens or drowns as their prisoner. Thor descends not into a frozen end, but into motion and judgment, stepping from the gate of the Jade Court onto the stone that leads to Diyu, where the dead flow like a river and the law never sleeps. In northern Tali's hell is a silent plain of inevitability, but here every corridor breathes with process. Clerks scratching names into ledgers, bailiffs marching chains of spirits from one hall to the next, drums calling each case to be heard. The air tastes of iron and ash. At the bridge of Nai, Mangpo stands with her bowl and warns that memory is a force as dangerous as steel. Thor refuses the drink, because a guardian must remember what he protects. He crosses to the first hall, under the gaze of Yanluowahu, and learns the rule that binds this world tighter than chains. Rage cannot replace verdict. The hungry dead swarm at the edges of the court, thin faces shining with need, and Thor discovers why heaven sent him. They are not enemies to be slain, but lines to be held so the judges can speak. He plants his feet, halberd low, and when a wave of ghosts surges, the blade hums with controlled thunder that stuns without destroying. pushing them back into the path where their names can be called. Clerks nod without pausing their writing. Black and white impermanents stride past with poles that hook the collars of runaways. Further down, the halls change shape, each one dedicated to a different weight on the scale of karma. Thor escorts a chain of spirits through a tunnel that sweats heat, guarding them from a demon that gnaws the links and whispers that law is only a story. He answers not with a speech, but with a strike that pins the demon to the floor and a second motion that seals it under a red strip signed by the judge. He learns quickly that thunder is a tool and scripts are the handle that holds it safe. At the seventh court, Oxhead lowers into his path, iron horns sparking and horse-face stamps, eyes burning coals. They do not hate him. They do not care about him. They exist to measure whether he belongs here. Thor raises his weapon and the guardians raise theirs, and the fight is nothing like the chaos of the sea. It is measured. 3 beats to test strength, 3 to test control, 3 to test whether he will break a rule to win. He does not. He steps back when the line touches the judge's dais. He lowers the blade when the drum calls halt. He earns a nod from both wardens, and they open a way that mortals never see. Beyond it, a pit exhales cold and a tower exhales heat, and between them, a courtroom hangs over darkness, ledgers stacked so high that clerks climb ladders to reach the names of kings. A case explodes into violence when a shackled demon snaps its bindings and rushes the steps, ripping a ghost from the chain and trying to hurl it into the void before trial. Thor moves, lightning quick but narrow as a needle, and cuts the chain free without severing the soul, pinning the demon to the rail with a hook that spits blue light. The judge signs 3 seals in the air, and the chains crawl back into place like living wire. Order returns, but only for a breath. The demon turns its head and smiles with a mouth full of smoke, then drags a single fingernail across a ledger and speaks Thor's name as if it were already inked on the page. The chain on Thor's wrist tightens by itself, and he feels the pull of judgment reach for him from below. And when the freed monster lunges to drag his own soul toward the docket, Thor understands that even a god is not safe in the court of the dead. Thor grows under constant whispers of comparison. In northern halls, his name would always be tied to Loki, the sly brother who smiles while poisoning wells and twisting fates. But in the Chinese mythology, that role belongs to Sun Wukong, the monkey king. Where Loki is subtle, Wukong spectacle. He bends rules until they snap, laughs in the face of heavenly decrees, and when chains are thrown to hold him, he multiplies into 1,000 bodies, each one grinning, each one ready to fight. Thor trains to control storms with discipline, yet every tale he hears of Wukong warns him that thunder alone may not be enough. Villagers whisper that if he ever loses his temper, he will follow the path of the monkey and become a threat to the very skies he protects. The comparison follows him everywhere until the day Wukong himself appears, balancing on a cloud of golden light, his staff longer than mountains, his smile wide and taunting. The challenge is not spoken in words, but in the air that crackles when their eyes meet. Thor lifts his halberd, lightning coiling around the blade, and Wukong spins his staff once, splitting the clouds into ribbons. Their first clash splits the horizon, thunder colliding with metal, sparks raining across heaven. Thor charges, his strikes heavy and direct, each swing meant to end the fight quickly. Wukong dances around him, each dodge effortless, each counterattack another laugh. Then the sky fills with monkeys, hundreds, then thousands, each holding a copy of the golden staff. Thor swings in wide arcs, calling down storms that burn through rows of them, but the copies reform faster than he can destroy them. Lightning clears 10, 20, 100, but always more leap in to surround him, climbing over each other, pulling at his arms and legs, until he looks buried in a mountain of fur and steel. He roars and thunder cracks the sky open, blasting them back, But the Monkey King is still there, unharmed, laughing louder than before. Thor realizes that while Loki thrives on venom and cunning, Wukong thrives on chaos itself. Not in whispers, but in floods of power that overwhelm every law heaven tries to enforce. The battle surges across the cloud palaces, soldiers watching from the gates too afraid to interfere, as lightning bolts strike side by side with blows of the staff. Neither combatant gives ground, and the heavens themselves hold their breath. And when the monkey's laughter echoes even as lightning blinds the sky, Thor begins to wonder if he will ever truly defeat an enemy who is never alone. In northern sagas, Thor's fate is sealed, his end already carved into stone. He slays Jormungandr, the world serpent, but dies poisoned by its venom in the doom called Ragnarok. But in Chinese mythology, no fate is written in advance. No serpent waits with inevitable coils. Instead, there is the threat of imbalance, the collapse of Yin and Yang that holds the cosmos together. When that balance begins to break, it does not come as prophecy, but as fracture. Temples crack, rivers dry while seas flood, the stars falter in their places, and dragons howl as if torn in half by forces older than heaven itself. Out of the abyss rises not a beast of water alone, but a distortion shaped like a dragon, its body woven from light and shadow, fighting to consume each other. Where Jormungandr is enemy of gods and men, this dragon is enemy of order itself. The Jade Court gathers its champions, and Thor stands among them not as an outsider, but as a pillar. Nezha's wheels ignite, Gong lifts his drum, and even Wukong, unwilling to miss Chaos the Sprite, bares his teeth in a grin and joins the host. Together, they march into a sky that already screams with fire and storm. The halberd of thunder arcs beside the golden staff. Bolts crash against the distorted coils, and each strike is met by a counterwave that shatters mountains. Demons pour from Diyu, the prisons breaking under the strain, their hunger drawn to the chaos like flies to blood. Thor wades into them without hesitation, lightning ripping through ranks of creatures that once mocked human graves, but for every ghost banished another rises. The fight spreads until the battlefield covers earth, sky, and underworld at once. In Asgard, Thor's final act is death, but here the battle carries a question rather than a sentence. Each blow he lands is not only against the dragon, but for the survival of balance itself. When Nezha is knocked down, Thor drags him back to his feet. When Wukong is pinned by shadow chains, Thor's thunder tears them apart. The war is not won by one strike, but by endless defiance, by refusing to let Yin devour Yang, or Yang crush Yin. Yet as the dragon grows, feeding on every clash, the sky shakes more violently than ever, and the Jade Emperor's court whispers whether the cycle can truly be repaired. The halberd pulses heavier in Thor's hands, each spark demanding that he settle the question with one decisive blow. The storm he commands is louder than any song of the north, and the fire of his allies fills the heavens with a light brighter than the sun. The world watches, mortal and divine alike, knowing that what comes next will either lock the cycle back into harmony or rip it open forever. And as Thor raises his weapon against the dragon of chaos, no one knows if he is about to save the world or shatter it beyond repair. Thor's legacy in the north is the saga of a giant slayer, a protector of men whose hammer cracked skulls and whose death was written into prophecy. In the Chinese heavens, his memory is carried differently. He is the keeper of storms, the guardian of balance, whose halberd once steadied the line between chaos and order. Villages tell stories not of feasts or drunken boasts, but of nights when the sky shook and thunder rolled. Yet no field was lost, because the god of storms bent the rain into lines that fed their crops instead of drowning them. Farmers leave bowls of grain at shrines to thank him, believing each rumble in the distance is a sign he still walks the clouds. Monks paint his image in sutras, golden hair bound in a topknot, halberd raised not to crush, but to guide, and in every stroke of ink they remind the faithful that power is not feared, when it serves harmony. Temples rise with carvings of him, battling dragons. Not as enemies, but as companions beside him, their coils bringing rivers, while his weapon brings the rain. Where the north honors the brute strength that breaks monsters, the east honors the restraint that prevents flood and famine. Thor becomes the pattern of how the celestial court shapes even wild thunder into a protector. He is no longer remembered as son of Odin, for that lineage never existed here, but as the child of Gong and Tian, born of thunder and lightning themselves. His tale does not end in a battlefield corpse, but in a cycle that repeats every season, a storm that comes, nourishes, and fades only to rise again. The difference is clear. In the north, his story is closure. In the east, his story is continuity. Each time black clouds build on the horizon and wind whips the trees, mothers tell children that Thor is watching, measuring whether the balance holds. His name is spoken in prayers for steady rain and in warnings against arrogance, because his legend carries both salvation and punishment. Statues of him stand at crossroads and temple gates, eyes carved sharp, halberd angled toward the heavens, as if ready to strike again if order falters. His memory teaches emperors to rule with balance and peasants to respect the cycles that feed them. His thunder is not only destruction but law, a sound that signals the heavens have not abandoned their watch. In this world, Thor is not an exile or a doomed warrior. He is a lawgiver in storm and a shield in rain. His immortality lies not in prophecy but in repetition, because every storm is a reminder that the God of thunder is part of the eternal rhythm of the sky. And if the balance ever breaks again, all know that the Chinese thunder will not remain silent for long.